Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. Okay, let's start off with, let's talk about data encryption. Okay, let's define what is data encryption. Well, data encryption basically is defined as the process of completely rewriting a file using an algorithm so that the data itself is obscured from being read, unless a secret key or password is provided to decrypt the data back into its original form. Okay, so how does Ahsay use encryption to protect data? When Ahsay is backing up your client data, commercial secrets or financial records to an offsite location like AhsayCBS server or the public cloud storage service such as Amazon S3, Google Cloud Storage, or Microsoft Azure, etc., clients need to be confident that the data is totally secure from unauthorized access. So basically, the purpose of data encryption is to protect the confidentiality and the security of backup data when it's transmitted via the internet or other networks during backup restore, and when it is stored in the backup destination, i.e. on the CBS server or public cloud storage. Well, let's address the first issue, when data transmission. Now, all files during backup are encrypted before they leave the client's destination. They're transmitted in an encrypted format. So even if they were intercepted, the hacker or the intruder will not be able to read the data. Also, during restore, the files are restored in an encrypted format. They're transferred in an encrypted format. They are only encrypted after they've been downloaded to the client's machine. And also, obviously, the second point about storage, all data is stored in an encrypted format, whether it's on the backup server or replication server. In addition, all communications between the OBM and ACB back agents and the CBS server or public cloud storage is using 256-bit SSL channel with TLS version 1.2 protocol to ensure that the data is transmitted securely. Let's talk a bit about the encryption algorithm. Now, Ahsay provides three encryption algorithm options: AES, 2FISH, and DES. Now, AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, provides the highest level of security. Now, whilst DES is the lowest level, provides the lowest level of security, and 2FISH somewhere in between. Well, there is actually a trade-off between the encryption strength and performance. When encrypting data using an AES algorithm, the backup restore performance may be affected versus, say, 2FISH or DES. That's why Ahsay provides different encryption options to allow clients the flexibility to choose between backup restore performance and data security, depending on their requirements. For example, you may use for sensitive data, such as client information, personal information, or commercial secrets, financial records, you may obviously choose AES, while 2FISH or DES for less sensitive data. In addition, two encryption methods are available. They are CBC, which is the cipher block chaining, and ECB, electronic cookbook. Now, the CBC is the stronger method. Okay, and in addition, also we have support for 128-bit and 256-bit key lengths. Having said that, now the default encryption algorithm and settings used by Ahsay provides the highest level of protection. The default settings are always AES encryption algorithm, CBC mode, and 256-bit key length. Now, those settings I mentioned, obviously, they're the only public available encryption algorithms approved by the US government for securing top secret information. A lot of people ask us, how safe is our encryption? Or basically, can AES encryption algorithm be cracked? To be honest, given enough time and processing power, any known encryption algorithm can be cracked using a brute force attack. What I mean by a brute force attack is systematically, checking for all possible combinations. For example, let's take AES using a 256-bit key length. This has 1.1 times 10 to the power of 77 possible combinations. Now, if we're using the 10 here supercomputer, this will require approximately 5.4 to the power of 52 years to crack using a brute force attack. Now, if you take this into perspective, now if you can look on the diagram, the age of planet Earth, or the estimated life of planet Earth, is only 10 to the power of 9 years. So basically, time required to crack the AES encryption is more than 4 or 5 times that of the estimated life of planet Earth. So the practical feasibility of a successful brute force attack is limited. Okay, next talk more about the encryption key. The encryption key is used by Ahsay to encrypt and protect your backup sets and your data from unauthorized access. It is a password for your data. Now, once the encryption key has been defined for backup set, it cannot be changed at a later date. If the encryption key needs to be changed, then a new backup set has to be created and the data needs to be backed up again from scratch. Okay, so I think that this point most end users get confused about this. Okay, Ahsay offers 3 different options for generating the encryption key, depending on the security level required by the client. The 3 types are default, user password, and custom. And each one has obviously pros and cons. Now, let's go for the first option, default. Now, default is also the default option. This is the most secure in terms of encryption key strength, as the encryption key is a randomly generated 44-character key string with uppercase, lowercase, and numbers, and also includes other characters as well. The encryption settings or encryption level is AES 256-bit CBC, so it's the strongest possible setting. Now, the second option is user password. Now, the encryption key strength, now that is dependent on the login password complexity. And I'll go through that later on about how to set that on CBS. But the encryption key settings or the encryption level is also the strongest at AES 256-bit CBC. The third option is custom. Now, the key strength is custom, so it depends on the user preference. Because it's customized, the user is allowed to set the length of the key. And for the encryption level, obviously, it also depends on client preference. They're allowed to choose which encryption algorithm, the key length, and whether it's CBC or ECB. Important note. Now, if the user password option is selected for the encryption key, now OBM, ACB will use the current password as the encryption key, whatever is at that time of backup set creation. And the encryption key will not change if the password is subsequently updated. Obviously, on this topic, some clients get confused, so I need to clarify this. Okay, the next question we get asked is, so where is the encryption key saved to? How is it protected? Well, the encryption key, which protects the backup data, is stored in a special file called the settings.sys file. This file is encrypted using AES 256-bit algorithm and is stored on the machine where OBM or ACB backup set was created. Depending on the operating system of the machine, the settings.sys file is located in the following folders. For example, you can see from the table, for example, on Windows, OBM will be located on the user profile .obm/config folder. If it's on Linux, the default will be on /root.obm config and so forth. So on ACB, it will be on the .acb config folder. Another question which people ask or are confused about is, when do I need to enter my encryption key? There are common situations where OBM ACB backup agent will require you to enter the encryption key R. For example, 1, if the original machine has suffered a fatal outage and you need to you installed OBM ACB on a new machine to restore files, then ACB or OBM will prompt you to enter the encryption key if you need to restore. If you're accessing a backup set which is created on another machine, then OBM ACB will prompt for the encryption key before you're allowed to access the backup set. If the .obm or .acb folder on the machine was deleted, that means the settings.sys file where the encryption settings were saved are removed. Then OBM ACB will prompt you for the encryption key before you can access any of the backup sets. If you're using the decrypt backup data feature on OBM ACB to restore files which were backed up from another machine, again, you'll be prompted to enter the encryption key before you're allowed to proceed with the restore. And finally, if you're using OBR to restore files, again, you need the encryption key to enter the correct encryption key before you're allowed to restore. And the final note, obviously, if you don't have the correct encryption key, you will not be able to access the backup set or perform any backup restores. Okay, we're going to go through some encryption key best practices. For backup sets protected with the user password or custom encryption setting, I think it's very important to make sure that the encryption key is not easily cracked or guessed. Please consider the following recommendations when creating an encryption key for your backup set. 1, the encryption key should be at least 8 characters long. 2, the encryption key should contain both uppercase and lowercase characters and numbers, as well as other characters like plus, minus, etc. Don't use an encryption key containing personal information or very easy to guess strings like ABC123 or something like that. And lastly, please remember to keep a copy of the encryption key. The encryption key is the password that allows access to your data. Without the correct key, your data will not be recoverable. Okay, although different encryption options are available, Ahsay provides our partners or MSPs with an easy way to customize which encryption options clients can select and to encourage good practices in data security via the CBS good policy settings. To ensure good data security, I think it's recommended that good policy settings are configured so that new backup sets are created on OBM ACB with encryption turned on by default, and also make sure that encryption cannot be turned off by clients, so that clients are only left with the option of choosing their desired encryption type, either default user password or option, and entering the encryption key if the custom type is selected. I think it is recommended, I think MSPs use either default or user password as the encryption type, as they have more control over the encryption settings through good policy, and not leave it up to the client side to decide which options to set, as in the custom option. Okay, I'm going to go through an example of a good policy setting. In this setting, for this group policy setting, we're going to enable encryption for all backup sets, and we're going to stop clients from disabling the encryption. The clients will be able to select their preferred encryption type, so they can select either a default, user password, or custom. Okay, we can do this through the web AhsayCBS web management console under the group policies GUI setting. As you can see on the setting in front of you, we have something called the new backup set wizard setting, encryption, disable, and enable. Now, what I've done is I've disabled the edit, I've unclicked edit, so they're not able, so they're basically, once you've done that, they're not able to disable it. Also, I've gone further by unselecting the view, so actually I've hidden that control anyway. Now, for the new backup set wizard encryption options, I've left all three options ticked, so basically they'll be able to view and they'll be able to select which options are available. So what happens when we apply this policy? When on OBM, for example, when clients are creating a backup set, when they get to the setting encryption page on the create backup set wizard, they will be able to choose the default user password or custom encryption key option. Obviously, if they choose custom, then they have to enter the encryption key. Now, after they've chosen the encryption key type, OBM will then prompt the user to make a copy. Very important, make a copy of the encryption key. They can unmask the encryption key, or they can select copy to clipboard to make a copy. Once they've done that, they press confirm to confirm the setting. And then the encryption key is saved. If they need to change that, they'll have to create a new backup set again, basically. Now, in the second example, again, we have we're going to enable encryption on all backup sets, and also we're going to stop clients from disabling the encryption. But for the encryption type, what we've done is we've set the encryption type as user password. This is going to be a mandatory setting on OBM ACB, so clients will not be able to choose the encryption type. They're going to be left with the user password. Now, so on the group policy settings, as you can see, for the encryption enable disable, the settings are the same. I've unselected edit and view, so they're not able to disable it. Now, for the new backup set wizard encryption options, okay, I've unclicked edit, so they can't change the options, but they will be able to view it. One further setting we need is the set the default encryption type. So basically, on the default encryption settings, what I've done is I've selected, as you can see on the lower corner, left-hand corner, I've selected user password, and I've selected basically all backup sets will have to use the user password as the encryption type. Again, so what happens is, so when a client, when they create a backup set, when they get to set the encryption, when they set to the encryption key, they will not be able to disable it, and obviously they'll be left with the mandatory user password setting. So all they can do is basically click on next, and OBM or ACB will prompt you to make a copy of the encryption key, either copy to keyboard, or you can unmask it and write it down so you can keep it in the same place. Then press confirm. Once confirmed, then the encryption key is set. Previously, I mentioned something about user password complexity when using the so if clients are provided with the option of choosing their user password as the backup set encryption key, I think it's good practice to make sure that the password complexity on CBS is configured to encourage complex passwords. Again, this can be done on the group policy settings. As you can see, I've got an example here. For example, I've selected numbers 0 to 9, obviously, and also uppercase and lowercase characters. I've set the minimum length to 8 characters, and also I've enabled special characters as well. Okay. Another question. So, how to manage encryption keys? To meet both the needs of your clients and to satisfy any contractual, legal, or regulatory requirements related to data confidentiality and security, Ahsay allows partners flexibility on how they choose to manage their clients' encryption key. Basically, they can either allow their clients to manage their key, or they can manage their client's encryption key for them. Obviously, each option has pros and cons. Okay, so let's look at let's get a bit of detail on. For example, let's take a look at the client managed keys. So if you allow clients to manage the key, well, obviously the plus side is the encryption key is only known to the client. It is stored only on the client's machine. There are no other copies on the CBS server. I would say this is one of the obviously this is the safest option available. But obviously the downside is if the encryption key is lost or forgotten, the backup data is not recoverable. Now, if you use a partner or MSP managed model, basically the encryption key can be uploaded to the CBS server and stored in a file, which is a special file, which is protected by AES 256-bit encryption. Now, the partner or MSP does not have access to the keys in that file because they're encrypted. Even Ahsay does not have access to the keys in that file. Now, the good thing about this is, if the client were to lose their key, forget their keys or lose their keys, the encryption key can be recovered in as little as 15 minutes directly from the CBS web console by the partner or MSP upon confirmation of payment of a service fee of $50 US. Okay. Let's talk a bit about the encryption key recovery service. Now, to provide partners and their clients with peace of mind, Ahsay has recently introduced the encryption key recovery service. Now, this is a self-service recovery. It enables partners to perform a recovery of the client encryption key directly from their CBS web management console without the need to contact Ahsay. So basically, during this process, the encryption key is automatically uploaded from CBS server to the Ahsay shop, and then the recovered encryption key is emailed directly to the contact email in the encryption key file. Excuse me, in as little as 15 minutes after confirmation of service fee payment. Now, during the whole process, the recovered encryption key is only disclosed to the authorized recipient. That's the email. That's the owner, the email address specified in the encryption key. Now, let's go through some of the conditions or on the usage of the encryption key recovery service. Okay, so to use this service, your partners, well, they must have a valid maintenance contract. That's one, and they must have obviously they must have a valid Ahsay shop login account. Now, to use self-service, AhsayCBS must be on 7.9.2.0 or above. And the backup set on OBM, which backed up OBM, basically OBM ACB, must be on 7.5 or above. And the client's user account must have a valid contact email address. Now, on the CBS settings, basically the OBM ACB user account on the CBS web console must have the upload the encryption key option clicked, selected, as you can see on the screenshot below. Also, on the OBM and ACB client, the encryption recovery option must be enabled, as you can see on that example. If it's not enabled, then the key will not be uploaded to the CBS. And also, finally, OBM ACB must have successfully uploaded the encryption key details to CBS. Now, this is done during every backup job. Basically, when all the options are enabled, it will upload the key and save it in a file called encryption keys.json RGZ file. Now, this file, this encrypted file, is saved in the CBS user home path. And you can see from the example, basically every backup will upload a file. Okay, now I'm going to take you through a walkthrough, a basic walkthrough to walk through the encryption key recovery self-service. Okay, so just bear with me a minute. Okay, so basically, this is my CBS 3.7 web console. I'm going to log in as a system. Now, so if one of the users has lost their encryption key, so I'm going to go into users, groups, and policies. Now, this user is EK02 has lost their key. They've got two backup sets. Now, one is client managed. So basically, this one, although we've enabled the upload encryption key, that's been disabled on the client side. So, for example, this one, if they lose their key, you can see we can't recover it because the recovery file is not being uploaded. So that's no good. But now for this backup set, this one has the file uploaded. So I'm just going to go to others. And you can see, as I said, there's a recover encryption key option. Now, if you click that, it's going to automatically redirect you to the Ahsay shop login. Okay, so I'm going to log in with my Ahsay shop account. Once you've logged in, now you can see it's also captured the backup set, which I want to recover. And there's also some other information like the license key of my CBS and product key. Now, on recipient, it says select one now. Now, because I've got two email contacts, basically the user has two email address contacts, so you'll be prompted to select one. If there's only one, then they will use the default one, that one. But I'm going to select this email, so it's going to the Ahsay shop's going to recover the encryption key, and it's going to email it directly to this email. So what I do now, so I've selected my email address. I'm going to press generate now. I'm waiting a while. Okay, so what's happened is, so it's generated an invoice, as you can see. It's called, this is the it's confirmed, this is AhsayCBS 3.7 encryption recovery service invoice. And these are the details. So I'm back it. So it's going to recover a backup set B2 MSP managed key, and it's going to send it directly to this email address, ahsaycs3@outlook.com. Now the unit, obviously the price is 390 Hong Kong dollars, which is $50 US. So I'm going to proceed with this transaction. I'm just going to press pay now. Okay, now. So it's going to ask me for payment methods. Obviously, there are two payment methods: credit card or TT. Obviously, if you're in a rush, if it's urgent, you're probably better off using credit card because TT transfer takes about 10 working days at least. Now, for this transaction, because I actually have some credit with my account, I'm going to deduct the credit from my account. So let's go OK. And what it's going to do is going to deduct $390 from my purchase deposit. Now I'm going to press confirm. Once I press confirm, okay. Now it's going to upload and it's going to upload the key and it's going to do the convert and it's going to do the decryption. Okay, confirmed. Okay. Okay, so that's done now. So the recovery is complete, and so basically around 15 minutes, I will receive an email, or the client will receive an email of the encryption key. So if the client was to log into their email account, now this is an example which I've done earlier. They'll receive something like this. They'll receive an email from obviously service delivery of AhsayB7 encryption key recovery service. They'll receive the encryption key. Yeah. Okay. 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 Let's talk about key takeaways. Okay. Firstly, okay, backups of sensitive data must have on-premises encryption. That's one. Two, I think we need to educate and enforce data security best practices. Three, Ahsay uses the strongest publicly available encryption technology. And four, the Ahsay encryption recovery service addresses the weakest link in the backup and data recovery process. That is the human link.